You've spent years being taught to chase success, chase wealth, chase approval, and somewhere along the way, you began chasing money as if it was running from you. But here's the truth. They never taught you. Money was never the prize. It was the mirror reflecting who you are when no one's watching. The frequency you carry before the bank account updates, the energy you embody when the lights are off and the pressure is real. Money doesn't come because you chase it. It comes because you become the version of yourself it's always been drawn to. You weren't born to run after paper. You were born to become power. But power doesn't beg, it doesn't plead, it doesn't knock on doors that were never meant to open. It builds its own house. It becomes the door. And that's where it begins. Not with effort, not with strategy, not with desperation, but with becoming. Becoming the vibration that money recognizes. The person who doesn't ask, how can I get more? But asks, who do I need to become to never lack again? Because money is never the goal. It's the echo. It's the echo of your self-worth, the ripple effect of your decisions, the side effect of alignment. The man who becomes magnetic to wealth does not chase. It flows to him, like rivers seeking the sea, like gravity bending for mass, like all things returning to where they belong. Do you want to know why the richest people often seem the calmest? Why they don't chase, don't rush, don't hustle the way you were told to? Because somewhere along their path, they stopped chasing outcomes and started becoming origin. They didn't ask how to impress life. They asked how to align with it. They understood a truth that's been whispered through centuries. Wealth is not a pursuit, it's a reflection. There was a boy once who grew up in silence, surrounded by scarcity, where money was a ghost, never present, always feared. That boy was Andrew. Carnegie, born in a one-room home in Dunfermline, Scotland. He wasn't taught luxury. He wasn't handed opportunity. He saw his father lose everything, and yet he became one of the richest men in history. Not because he chased money, but because he chased growth. He became wealth in human form, vision, discipline, belief. He didn't knock on doors begging for coins. He built entire industries where doors would open automatically. He didn't ask for wealth to notice him. He became impossible to ignore. Because once you stop acting like money is above you, you start remembering it's already within you. But this takes radical responsibility. It takes detaching your worth from digits. It takes understanding. Your frequency precedes your fortune. You can't hold $1 million in your hands until you hold it in your mind. You can't sustain wealth unless you've shifted your identity. Because if you still think like the broke version of yourself, even success will slip through your fingers. Money is not impressed by desperation. It is pulled by clarity. It flows toward peace. It multiplies in the presence of calm conviction. And yet most people live in tension, in fight or flight, in scarcity, cycles that drown their power. They believe they're working hard, when really, they're repelling everything they want. So stop. Stop running, stop performing, stop calculating every move as if you're trying to outsmart the universe. You can't trick abundance into visiting you. You must invite it by becoming a match to its nature. You become it by being the person who no longer needs to prove. You become it by walking like you already have it, because you do. Inside, in your beliefs, in your daily state. You want money to come to you? Then embody a life money loves to live in. Not fear, not neediness, not exhaustion masked as ambition. Live in clarity, live in expansion, live in service, in creativity, in value. Because that's where money feels safe. That's where it stays. That's where it grows. There's a reason why people win the lottery and lose it. Because their external wealth outran their internal capacity. And when who you are hasn't caught up with what you have, you will always return to your level of self-image. Napoleon Hill called this the law of cosmic habit force. The patterns you accept become the conditions you attract. So when you wake up every day broadcasting lack, even while reciting affirmations of abundance, you are not becoming money. You are becoming contradiction, and contradiction repels everything. Good. So ask yourself this, what does money feel like in your body? Does it feel heavy, tense, far away, or does it feel natural, inevitable, already done? That answer reveals the true frequency you live in. And that frequency, not your resume, not your credentials, not your past, is what determines the flow of abundance. So shift it. Not someday. Not when the bills are paid. Not after you get back on your feet. Now. Because if you wait for your circumstances to change so your mindset can follow, you'll be waiting until the end of your days. But when you shift, your inner world first, your external world has no choice but to obey. That's not spirituality. That's alignment. And alignment is the most dangerous power a human can hold. Because the one who is aligned doesn't chase, doesn't doubt, doesn't flinch. They move with silent certainty. They walk into a room and the room adjusts. That's what money responds to. Not hustle, not noise, but resonance. The resonance of someone who lives as if they already have what they seek. The resonance of someone who no longer begs for wealth, but breathes it. They give generously, they think expansively. They act from sufficiency, not survival. And slowly, without forcing it. Life rearranges because you stopped chasing. You became. Think about the river. It doesn't beg to flow, it doesn't ask permission to move. It simply is. Now imagine wealth as that river, flowing, free, abundant. Now ask yourself, have you been the dam? Have you been placing resistance, self-doubt, fear, shame, guilt, and unworthiness right in the middle of its natural path? And then wondering why it won't reach you? You were never meant to chase water. You were meant to remove the barriers and let it come. You don't need more hacks. You need less resistance. You don't need to do more. You need to become more. There's a man named Thomas Edison. He didn't chase success. He embodied obsession. He became light in human form. 1,000 failures didn't break him because he wasn't seeking wealth. He was becoming something the world had never seen, and as a result, the world paid attention. That's the paradox. When you stop trying to be seen, you become undeniable. But becoming is uncomfortable, because becoming means letting go of who you've been. The identities you wore to survive, the stories you told yourself to stay small, the excuses that kept you safe from your own greatness. You cannot become money and still act like the version of you who fears opening the bills. You cannot become prosperity while treating every expense as a threat. You cannot become wealth if every time you spend, you silently believe you're losing because you're not losing. You're circulating, and money, true money, loves circulation. It hates stagnation. It thrives in expansion. It multiplies in the hands of those who know it's just energy. When you spend from fear, money resents you. When you spend with trust, it returns. Think of the moments you gave without fear. You tipped the waitress big. You invested in yourself boldly. You donated anonymously, joyfully. Didn't it feel different? That feeling is wealth, not the amount, but the energy behind it. And if you can live in that energy every day, every transaction, every breath, then you've already become the one money is looking for. And that's the moment everything starts to shift. Not because you forced it, but because you finally matched it. You stopped behaving like money was the master. You stopped acting like it was above you, beyond you, outside you. You stopped placing it on a pedestal and bowing to it like a god. You realized you are the source. The thoughts you think, the emotions you carry, the actions you repeat, all of it builds the architecture of your financial reality. So let me ask you directly, have you been building a house for abundance to live in, or a prison that keeps it out? Because some of you are trying to attract wealth with a blueprint made of fear. You hold on too tight. You plan every dollar like a soldier at war. You save, not from wisdom, but from panic. And then you wonder why life never multiplies what you store. But energy doesn't multiply tension, it multiplies ease. You want to build wealth? Stop living like life is trying to take from you. Because life is not your enemy, it's your amplifier. It mirrors back whatever you radiate. That's why two people with the same job, same salary, same background can live in completely different worlds. One lives in expansion, the other in contraction. One walks into a room and sees opportunity. The other sees risk, threat, danger. They earn the same, but they exist differently. One is becoming, the other is still chasing, and so the gap widens, not in income, But in identity, you don't need to change what you do. You need to change how you are when you do it. You don't need to beg life for more. You need to stop blocking what's already yours. Think about Walt Disney. He didn't just build an empire. He imagined it first. He felt it before he saw it. He walked it before it existed. He didn't wait for proof. He became the proof. They laughed at him. They doubted him. And still, he dreamed. Not because he was chasing millions, but because he was living in the frequency of vision. That's what money listens to. Vision, conviction, a soul that refuses to shrink just because others can't see it yet. You want to know why wealth doesn't find everyone? Because most people are broadcasting fear at full volume. They speak abundance, but leak anxiety. They post positivity, but live in panic. They hustle loudly, but lack quietly. And the universe doesn't respond to your mask. It responds to your core. You don't need to speak abundance. You need to become so certain, so rooted, so clear, that life itself bends around you. And here's the secret. Most people never tell you. You don't get rich by trying to be rich. You get rich by becoming whole. Because when you're whole, money becomes a partner, not a prize. It flows with you, not above you. It enhances, not defines. It arrives, not because you chased it, but because you made room for it to live. There is a version of you, one who no longer reacts, one who no longer doubts, one who no longer sees money as validation, but as expression. And that version of you already exists, already knows, already is. You don't need to go find them, you just need to remove everything you became that you're not. The scarcity, the shame, the story that you must suffer before you succeed. Let it go. Because the truth is, wealth doesn't come after the breakthrough. Wealth is the breakthrough. The moment you become it, the world responds. And when that shift happens, that real, quiet, irreversible shift, you don't celebrate it with noise. You don't announce it to the world. You just begin to live differently. You breathe slower. You speak less from need, more from knowing. You walk into situations that used to trigger scarcity, and you carry peace. Because now, the war inside you is over. You're not hustling to prove. You're not building to validate. You're not collecting money to show you matter. You know you do. You've rewired the deepest program most never touch. The one that says, I am not enough until I have more. And now you sit at the center of your being, not waiting for riches to complete you, but watching as they come to confirm what was already true. Money becomes the reflection, not the source. It echoes your frequency. It mirrors your movement. It shows up after you've already shifted into a life that invites it. Not because you're trying to be rich, but because you stopped apologizing for being powerful. And from that power, you move. You begin to invest without fear. You begin to create without doubting who will buy. You begin to give without calculating what you'll get back because you understand. True wealth is circulation, not possession. It is relationship, not domination. It is flow, not fixation. Some people think they'll feel wealthy when they can buy anything, but real wealth is when nothing owns you. Not fear, not scarcity, not the opinions of people still afraid to believe. When you've truly become money, you walk into a store and feel peace, whether you buy or not. You open your banking app and feel gratitude, no matter the balance. You receive and you give. Without the voice of fear whispering, be careful, there won't be enough. Because that voice is gone. Not because your account changed, but because you did. This is not about money, it never was. It's about power. It's about identity. It's about waking up and realizing that everything you were taught about money was just a reflection of other people's fear. But fear is not your inheritance. Lack is not your destiny. Scarcity is not your name. Your name is expansion. Your birthright is flow. Your nature is wealth. And when you stop chasing money and begin to embody this truth, you become a magnet. Not because you're perfect, but because you're aligned. And alignment is louder than strategy. Alignment is faster than hustle. Alignment is the current that money always rushes toward. You were never here to pursue the thing. You were here to become the force behind it. Money? That was just the test. To see if you'd remember who you are before the world tried to convince you otherwise. So remember now. Not with your mind, with your being. Feel it in your posture. Feel it in your breath. Feel it in the silence between each heartbeat. You are enough. You are the source. You are the frequency. And when you truly become it, you will never need to chase anything again. And now, in this stillness, this sacred moment between who you were and who you're becoming, you realize something profound. There is no finish line. There's only deepening, deeper clarity, deeper trust, deeper embodiment. You don't arrive at wealth, you expand into it. You don't find freedom at the end of the road. You create it with every aligned step you take. And maybe that's what no one ever told you. That this journey was never about getting anything. It was about becoming someone who no longer lives in reaction, but in creation, because creation is your nature. You were born to generate reality, not wait for one to be handed to you. And now that you see that, now that you've dropped the mask of striving, now that you've burned the old identity built on lack and comparison, you are no longer the seeker, you are the source. And from this place, you give differently. You receive differently. You live differently. You begin to look at money not as a savior, but as a symbol, a reflection, a resource, a tool. And tools don't define you. They serve you. They move in response to your inner blueprint, not the other way around. So build the blueprint wisely. Build it from belief. Build it from gratitude. Build it from the quiet, knowing that you lack nothing. You have never lacked. You were simply looking through the eyes of someone who was taught to believe they did. But that story ends now, because the new you isn't waiting. The new you isn't chasing. The new you is becoming fully, boldly, unshakably. Becoming the version of yourself who doesn't collapse under uncertainty. Who doesn't question their worth when a paycheck is late. Who doesn't measure their identity by what the world thinks they can earn. You become the version who acts with vision, who moves with power, who doesn't flinch when life tests them. Because their foundation is deeper than money. It's built on self-trust. That is the wealth no one can take. And once you have that, the rest will follow. Money will come, opportunities will rise, doors will open. Not because you begged for them, but because you became the person they were waiting for. You've spent too long asking for abundance. Now it's time to live as if it's already yours. Not in arrogance, but in truth. Truth that doesn't need to shout. Truth that doesn't need applause. Truth that just is. Because you are enough. Because you are ready. Because you already are what you were chasing. Stop looking for money. Become it. Live like the person you've been waiting for. Act like the universe has already said yes. Move like you are already held. Speak like your words shape worlds. Because they do. Because you do. So rise. Rise without fear. Rise without force. Rise without chasing. And watch as the world finally catches up to the person you've chosen to become.